Welcome to the mid-year book tag. Hello everyone. We are now in July, which means we are past the halfway mark of 2025. Half of the year is gone, which is crazy to think about because time's just been flying this year. Around this time of the year, I usually like to do something called a mid-year life audit. I take a look at my vision board, I take a look at all the goals I set for myself at the beginning of the year, and then I take a look at how many of those goals I've achieved, what I'm on track to achieve, and what I can get done to tick all of them off by the end of the year. But I recently saw a little mid-year book tag circulating around booktube, and I thought it would just be so much fun to do, because if I'm going to do a life audit, why not do a mid-year book audit? Take a look at what I've been reading, anything I want to change up, just a little review of everything I've done this year. As of the time that I'm filming this video, I have read 81 books this year. I know it sounds quite crazy, but I have a lot of time on my hands and I get through them pretty quickly. This is decades of book reading training just slamming into me. Like, I can read quite quickly. But even so, keep in mind that a lot of these 81 books are rereads. Some of them are DNFs. Some of them are novellas, so it's not actually 81 full books. It's just that I use Goodreads to track my books, and it's literally not been updated since the Cold War, so there's no nuance to this number. The primary genres that I read, if you are new to this channel, are fantasy and romance books. I would estimate that maybe like 70% or 75% of what I've read this year so far has been in fantasy. There are a bunch of questions for this book tag, and I spent this morning picking out all of the books for this. So let's just get started. I'll put the questions on the screen in case you want to participate too. Starting off with the best book that I read this year, and it was 100% The Knight and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, which is a pretty recent release, and it's about a diviner who can see the future, and her fellow diviners start to go missing, so she joins forces with an arrogant knight and a sentient gargoyle to go on a little quest to discover what happened to them. It is a gothic fantasy. It is wonderful, so much fun. Like, I love a good quest story, so entertaining. I loved it. And in a similar vein, what was the best sequel that I read this year? And it was absolutely The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book to the Chronicles of Castellane series, the first being Swordcatcher, but this one just builds upon everything that made the Swordcatcher good and makes it great. The plot thickens. The characters get more and more interesting. This book was a wild ride. It feels like a baby Game of Thrones, and I love where Cassandra Clare's writing has gotten to. Beautiful prose, incredibly complex characters. This is just such a fun time for anyone who is into adult fantasy. And on to highly anticipated new releases that I have not yet read. The first one, which I will have read by the time this video is posted, is The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy by Brigitte Knightley. I have been eagerly anticipating this book for the longest time. It's about an assassin who blackmails a healer. They despise each other, by the way, to heal whatever's wrong with him. And it's Brigitte Knightley's debut book. However, I have read her writing before because she wrote my favorite Hermione fanfic of all time, Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love. The best fanfic ever. The wittiest writing, the best slow burn, the best enemies to lovers. I am so excited. It's a fantasy rom-com, and I know the fact that I will have read this by the time you watch this. That's so exciting to me. And much in the same vein of other fantasy rom-coms, I received this beautiful copy of Ladies' Night by Megan Spooner and Amy Kaufman, and I started reading it, but I had to put it aside because there was another book I wanted to read, but I really want to get back to it. Think medieval, sapphic, jousting, tournaments. She's a knight, she's her lady. I'm pretty sure there are dragons in this story too. This could not get any better. And then we have my most anticipated release for the second half of this year, and I have two big ones. The first is Alchemized by Senlin Yu, and this is of course a reworking of Manacled, which was a popular Hermione fanfiction. I have read Manacled. It was the most devastating pain of my entire life, so much so that I questioned whether I wanted to read Alchemized or not, but I've decided the writing is too good, the plots are too good, I have to read Alchemized as well. I don't actually know the synopsis for Alchemized, but I assume it's like the same pathway as Manacled. It was basically an alternate universe where Voldemort wins, and all of the women of the Order of the Phoenix are used as kind of surrogates to help reboost the population after the Wizarding War. So very Handmaid's Tale-esque, and I assume this follows in the same vein. Very excited and very scared. And can I just say, it's so wonderful to see so many fanfiction authors being like traditionally published this year, because their work is sometimes, when I'm reading it on AO3, it's infinitely better than some published books. So the fact that they're getting these opportunities coming their way just makes me the happiest person ever. The next book I'm really looking forward to is called Of Flame and Fury, and I haven't heard anyone talk about this, but it's a YA fantasy and it's supposed to take place on an island, a magical island, where phoenix racing is the sport of choice, and our main character has to work with her rival or like a rival team in this phoenix racing championship. I've heard it described as a Fourth Wing meets Iron Widow kind of story. Biggest surprise, I think this has to go to Enchantra, which is the second book in the, actually what's it called? I don't know what the series is, but it's the sequel to Phantasma, a book that I thoroughly disliked. I thought Phantasma was dull. It missed every beat it was trying to hit, in my opinion, but this book absolutely killed it. It was a dark romantasy, and it feels very much like the horror movie Ready or Not, and I love that movie. Our main character Genevieve takes a trip to a spooky Italian estate at exactly the wrong time because the family who live inside that building are cursed to play a game called Enchantra. It is a game where they try and kill each other, basically. Their ancestors made a deal with the devil, and now they have to kill each other for the entertainment of the demons. But because Genevieve has entered the estate at the wrong time, she must play too. I don't know how to describe it other than that, but it was absolutely fantastic. I loved it so much. I was on the edge of my seat. I was on a plane and I just couldn't stop reading it. A new favorite author that I have not read before, and this has to go to Laura Stephen. I read Our Infinite Fates at the very beginning of the year, and I was in tears. This was perfection. This was so good. For anyone who liked The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I think you're really going to enjoy this because it's about two people who are doomed to fall in love but also doomed to kill each other in every single lifetime that they live. The writing style is amazing. The sort of ideas that this author has, amazing. I cannot wait to read more of her work. My newest fictional crush, it has to be James from Watch Me. If you guys have read Shatter Me, James looks like Warner but acts like Kenji. That is probably the best way to describe James Anderson, and coming back into the world of Shatter Me 10 years later with this new AI kind of plotline is absolutely amazing. So for those of you who haven't read Shatter Me, this follows James Anderson, who is Aaron Warner's younger brother, 10 years on from the conclusion of the Shatter Me series. I'm so excited to read the rest of this series. I'm so glad to see these beautiful covers are back. And James, I was obsessed with James. He was so funny, but so incredibly skilled, arrogant, intelligent, all of it rolled into one. A book that made me cry. This has to go to Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. To be quite honest with you, I held myself together for most of this book, but there was like the ending 10% or so. Oh, I was losing it. Gosh, it's such a beautiful story. This is about an astronaut called Joan, and we follow her life through her training program to become an astronaut candidate with NASA, eventually following her onto an ill-fated mission to space. But this book doesn't just deal with space and everything like that. It also deals with the issues with being a woman in STEM back in the 1980s, as well as being a queer woman. Oh, I will be thinking about this book for a long time. I don't know how Taylor Jenkins Reid consistently manages to deliver such amazing reads, but this was one of the top books of the year for sure. A book that made me happy, The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love by India Holton was such a pleasant surprise, and I actually received this as an ARC last year but never got around to reading it. It was such a good time. So this book is actually a fantasy rom-com. I believe it's set in the 1800s or so. Ornithologists in this world actually hunt magical birds, and there is a competition hosted by the International Body for Ornithologists to capture a magical bird. But in reality, the organization has engineered this competition to create like a sort of love story between our two main characters. A bloody good time, and it's also so short, so I think if you need a little bit of a pick-me-up and you want to be laughing out loud in public like a maniac, you need to read this. I also would say the other book that made me really happy was Rewind It Back by Liz Tom Ford. This is the conclusion to the Windy City series, which is a series of sports romances set in Chicago. And this was Hallie and Rio's book, and we met Rio at the very beginning of the series. He's a little puppy dog. He's the most adorable member of the team. Hallie and Rio grew up as neighbors together. They became childhood best friends, eventually fell in love, until something happened in their early 20s that just tore them apart. Now they haven't spoken to each other in 6 years. What happens when Hallie moves right next door to Rio in Chicago, and they are lightsabers once again, and that old flame reignites once again. This made my heart so happy because now everyone in the Windy City universe is happy together with someone that they love. I have really grown fond of all these characters over the entire series, and this final page here, you can pause to read it. Basically him going through every single person in the friendship group and talking about how love transformed them for the better and made them stronger, made them kinder. The most beautiful book that I bought this year, and this one's a big boy, it's the new cover of The Will of the Many by James Islington, and I did actually read this book this year, even though it came out a while back. But this cover is a beautiful illustration of what the society that the author has described is supposed to look like. So it's about a society that is rigidly organized by something called will. So the people at the bottom tiers cede their will, which is their strength, their power, whatever, to the people above them. So those at the top get the will of everyone in society. Those at the bottom are just weak. And that is how the system subjugates its people. Gorgeous map as well. Anyway, our main character has never ceded his will to anyone, and he catches the attention of someone who is a high-ranking official in society and enters the academy, the elite academy for the children of high-ranking nobles, to take the system down from the inside. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was also absolutely mind-bending, especially at the end, and I cannot wait for the next book to come out, which it does in November. I think if you liked Red Rising, you would eat this up. A book that I've got to read by the end of this year, without question, this has to be A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, and this is the first book of A Song of Ice and Fire. Obviously, as you can tell, this is the series that inspired Game of Thrones, my favorite show of all time. I assume that each season of the show is kind of like each book. Funnily enough, I thrifted the entire series and I still haven't gotten around to it. Favorite TV show, I own the whole series, haven't read it. What am I doing? Especially now that it's winter, I feel like it's the perfect time to start a complicated fantasy. Every single thing that is in that show, I adore, and it comes from these books. So I have no doubt that I'll actually probably enjoy the books more. I think I'm just nervous to start them. My 5-star reads of the year, I'm just gonna throw them on the screen for you because there is quite a lot of them, and every 5-star on this screen is not a reread, because I did reread stuff like the Harry Potter series this year. That is a 5-star series for me. But so of the new books that I read this year, these were the books that were 5 stars to me. Just some excellent books, or like I think I'll put a couple of 4.5 stars on this screen too. There are so many wonderful books that have released this year, and I am so lucky to be able to read these. And a couple of books I want to reread in 2025. The first one, and I've been aching to read this for a while, is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is a YA fantasy heist story set in a fictional sort of Amsterdam world where Kaz Brecker is the leader of a gang of street thieves, and we follow 6 of the most elite members of this crew as they attempt one of the most ambitious heists. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I badly want to reread it, and I haven't done so in a very long time. It's like coming home whenever I read this book. It's a masterpiece, and it's a foundational text of book talk back in 2020, and for very good reason. The other book that I really want to reread, and we're doing a complete 180 here, it is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. For some people, this is their Roman Empire. They adore this series. They think about this series every day. They have merch of this series. They connect so deeply to it. Me personally, I read this series last year and I didn't connect to it at all. I could understand that the writing was addictive and that you might grow to care for the characters, but I just wasn't connected to the characters, wasn't really connected to the plot or the world. But when I was thinking about this series at the beginning of this year, I realized I couldn't remember a single thing about it. Did I read it with my eyes closed or something? Because I don't remember anything. Then I read The Conditions of Will, also by Jessa Hastings, but not set as part of the Magnolia Parks series. And I found that I really enjoyed her characters and I really enjoyed her writing style too. So I'm thinking of maybe picking this one back up. A lot of people call this like a British version of Gossip Girl. Gossip Girl is my other favorite show of all times. I really just need to bite the bullet and pick this back up. What I was thinking is when I do my read of Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire, I could use a Magnolia Parks book as a palate cleanser between each Game of Thrones book. So I could read a Game of Thrones, read this, and then I could read A Clash of Kings, and I could read The Daisy Hates book, a book I enjoyed with mixed reviews. This one is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I actually really liked this book. This is the story of two rival writers who are invited to the home of a reclusive ex-socialite, and she's basically making them compete for who gets the honor to write her story. So it is a summer romance like most of Emily Henry's book, but it does have a beautiful little mystery twist. I understand what the criticisms are, but I enjoyed myself immensely. And last but not least, my 5-star prediction for the rest of the year. I am thinking that Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross will be a 5-star read for me, and this is set in the exact same world as Divine Rivals. It takes place in a completely different time frame, and I think it's a romance between a mortal and a god, and I will always eat those sorts of stories up. I know it's going to hurt. I know it's going to make me cry. I know it's going to be absolutely beautiful and lyrical. I know that's how I felt about the Divine Rivals duology. I genuinely do not know what to expect. And that concludes our mid-year book tag. I actually quite enjoyed doing this. I sometimes forget about just how many extraordinary books I get to read every single year. This is definitely a different sort of video for me, because I think the only sit-down bookish ones I do are like reading wrap-ups. But anyway, let me know if you do like sit-down book content, and I will try to do more of those. But until then, I will be seeing you next week. Bye!